2 weeks on the road. We're trying to get the boat cleaned up, organized, and get ready for Eufaula next week. And thought I'd just go over a recap of Lake Murray, where we had a pretty good finish. Finished up 34th there, and then I'm going to put together another recap of Lake Pickwick. So it's been a busy 2 weeks. If you've seen the practice video from Lake Murray, we had a pretty good practice. We didn't feel like in practice that we had dialed in what we thought would take to win. We'd found some things that were really working. We were able to get some bites, doing a lot of different things, from shallow, way back in the creeks and the pockets, to out on the main points in the creeks and stuff, shallow flats and stuff, on fish chasing either shad or the herring. So with the practice video, as you saw, we felt like we had a good practice. Well, so we'll go into the first day of the tournament at Lake Murray, and we have one particular point within sight of the launch area, so we didn't have a long way to run. So we pull up to that place the first morning of the event, and the fish are starting to bust a little bit, and we start throwing a double flute rig, and we start catching them. I think I even catch a double on the double flute rig pretty quick. So we got on the leaderboard pretty early the first morning of the tournament, kind of got the ball rolling in the right direction, and went on throughout the day and was able to catch a 5-pounder and cull up to, I think we had a little over 15 pounds, right at 16 pounds the first day. So setting somewhere around the 30th place, I don't remember, like 31st after the first day. So we had some good momentum going into that tournament for the second day. And it's funny, the second day of the tournament, I started back on the same point I did the first morning, throwing the double flute rig. But after a few minutes, I really noticed that they weren't schooling, they weren't popping shad too much, and they weren't eating the double flute rig. So I thought it was just like maybe I had depleted the point, because later the first day I'd seen a couple other boats on that point, and I thought, maybe those guys caught them. So I went to some of my other areas, and they were kind of dry too. I was mainly focusing on the double flute rig, and it just wasn't. I wasn't getting the bites I was the first day. So I went to my third spot on the second day, and there again they weren't biting double flute rig. I threw a top water, threw a lot of different things trying to get them to bite, and they just didn't bite. So I sat down in the boat and tied up a single fluke. And it doesn't make any sense, but when I did that, I quickly caught like a 2-pounder on the second day, and then like a 3.5 on almost back-to-back cast on the single fluke. So it got my wheels rolling on that, and so I kind of just put the single fluke in my hand and ran some places, and went to a place that I hadn't fished the first day, but I had caught a really good fish in practice on, and those fish were stacked on that point. I mean, really stacked. And for probably 10 or 15 minutes the second day, I caught fish on the single fluke. I caught them on the evergreen shower blow. Just cast after cast that second day for, I don't know, it seemed like an hour. I don't know how long it was, but quite a while. There was just a lot of fish there, and I pulled up on it at the right time, and they were feeding. After that bite slowed down the second day, I moved up into some pockets where I'd seen some fish bedding in practice, and some that were just kind of cruising down the bank. And I found one on bed that second day. It was kind of deep, so I didn't really know how big it was. It looked big enough to help me, so I was able to set up on that fish on bed, and I forget what I pitched in there, but some kind of plastic bait. Worked it for a few casts and finally caught it, and it was about a 2 3/4 pounder. and you know, it helped me coal up. I had another 15 plus pounds the second day, and made the cut to the third day. So I was super happy about that. That was my first cut, you know, of the year. So happy about that. And so moving into the third day, I started to, I couldn't really decide whether I would go to the place where all the fish were stacked right off the bat or go back to my original point that I started on. And right at the last minute, I decided to go back to the point that I originally started on the first day and start there. And I started there, and really quickly I picked up a spinnerbait that day, and like on the, I think the first or second cast with a spinnerbait, I caught a 2 3/4 pounder. So got my day started that way, and moved around some, and went back to the place where I was saying that like those fish were stacked on, that I caught them on the top water in the single fluke the second day. Went back to it, and those fish were still there, and they were blowing up on herring or shad or something on that point. And I caught several fish there. One almost 4 pounder, 3 3/4 pounder, and lost a couple of really big fish that would have helped me. One was on I think a magic swimmer, and one other one on a single fluke. I don't know what happened. It kind of balled the fluke up, and I just lost it. But scrambled around that day, lost a couple of fish the third day that really hurt me. But came away, I think I had 12 pounds the third day and finished up in 34th position. So not a super bad tournament. I was pleased with it, but I hate missing those opportunities and losing those fish that would have really gave me a lot of extra points and would have made more money too. So, but a couple of things that I was throwing, like I said about the first day, was the double flute rig. You know, a lot of people ask me how I threw the double flute rig, and as you can see, you know, you got your main line, and you've got a if you're not careful, this thing's like tangle up big time. But you got a main line, and you got a swivel on it right here on your main line, and then you got another swivel that ties to it. So you just make a leader off the one that slides up and down your line. Just got a regular fluke with a Trocar TK100 4/0 worm hook in it, and then you tie another leader to that other swivel, and you got a Trocar TK100 worm hook on that in a fluke style bait, and you just switch that thing out there, and those two baits they dart and dive through the water pretty much like bait fish do. So the first day, that's mainly what I caught all my fish on. I threw that.
That would be, yeah, 2-3.
that on a Daiwa 8 1-to-1. Cigar 17-pound fluorocarbon line is the main line, and I think that's 15-pound leader line. Threw it on the Mega Bass Levante braidless. It's a 7'5", you know, kind of a medium action rod. Worked really good for that double flute rig. For the single fluke, you know, single flukes can be kind of hard to throw. So opted to throw that on a spinning rod. You know, it's a Levante Enforcer. It's a 7'4" rod, medium heavy action rod. Threw it on a Shimano sustain reel, braid with a 12-pound fluorocarbon leader. I used 10 and 12, but mostly the 12 because some of those fish were a little bit bigger. Threw that on the TK 100 trocar hook as well. Just a pretty basic setup, but with that bait being light, it was easier to cast on the spinning tackle. I did catch a few fish, especially the first day. You know, on a shaky head. I didn't mention that earlier, but I did catch a few fish that helped me first day on a shaky head, and I threw that on a Mega Bass Destroyer Addermine rod with a Daiwa ballistic reel. 10-pound cigar braided line, and this is an 8-pound, no, it's 10-pound fluorocarbon leader, just a standard 3/16 shaky head, and just a zoom trick worm. Spinner bait, which I wish I would have spent a little more time throwing that spinner bait. I think I could have dialed that in just a little bit better. But it's a Mega Bass SV 3 spinner bait's a newer spinner bait that I was throwing. I threw it on a Mega Bass Arachi 7'5" EMTF. I made long bomb cast out on those points with it. You know, those blades just give off a unique vibration. I think made a little bit of difference. Threw it on 17-pound Cigar Invis X with a Daiwa 6'3" reel. chatterbait on the second day that I caught a couple of fish, key fish that helped me on was the evergreen shower blow. You know, it's a 125 bait. It's got a 30-pound Cigar Smackdown braid on it. Threw it on the Megabass Levante Diablo Spec R. It's a 7'2" rod, medium action rod. It's one of my favorite rods. It's really an all-purpose rod that I can do a lot of different things with, from chatterbaits to top waters to spinner baits, just a lot of different things. And just threw that on a 13 Fishing Concept C reel. So that was just, you know, a few things that really, I mean, you didn't have to have a whole lot of rods on the deck at Murray. It was just a, you know, pretty simple top water, fluke, spinnerbait, and a shaky head. So that's kind of how I finished up, you know, at Murray. Got some good points back, moved up to 74th in points. You know, we're trying to make that top 40. We're going to Eufaula in next week. So really looking forward to that tournament. Hopefully we'll have another good event there and keep working our way up in the points. So that was just a real quick recap on Lake Murray, and we'll catch you on the next video about Pickwick.